Okay, welcome to Student Planning and Self-Service, also known as the new Data VU. Today we'll go through all of the self-service features and student planning in self-service features, a little bit from the student perspective, and then primarily focusing on the advisor and faculty role in those views. But I'll start with a little bit of an overview of the IT, little bit of data structure overview. Okay, we'll go this way. So our main database as an institution, where all of our student academic data, student demographic data, as well as faculty and staff information live, is Colleague. So that's our primary underlying database. You may have heard it referred to as DataTel. That was a previous name of the software. Ellucian is the vendor for that software, so sometimes that might be thrown in there interchangeably as well, but the primary database is Colleague. That's where all of this information lives. Colleague then feeds information to several other systems that we use in the process of teaching courses and managing student relationships, tracking student requirements, all of those things. So the first one that we'll talk about is Blackboard. And Blackboard, of course, is the learning management system. So the student roster data, who's teaching a particular course, all originates from Colleague. The second one, this is where the focus of our training today will be, is Colleague Self-Service. That's what we internally have dubbed Data VU. That system was, self-service is basically just a major upgrade to the user interface that we've used. The one that we're on right now is called WebAdvisor. Ellucian, again, the vendor, has made a major upgrade to that, to a platform that they're calling self-service instead of WebAdvisor. So it's not new software that we're buying or anything. This is just a major upgrade to the user interface that most of us use, from WebAdvisor to self-service. That's also the system where, if you've looked at your pay advice recently, or if you approve time cards, we're already doing those functions in self-service. So the interface should look familiar from that perspective. Students have been handling their financial aid and their student accounts already through self-service. So the interface won't be totally new to everyone, just this functionality within the interface. The next is Starfish, which is, I think of as our relationship management tool with students. It has some of the academic information, but it really has kind of the student's entire support network and more information about the student from a relational perspective. But that also is fed from the Colleague database, as well as from some other, from our housing system, and a few other systems, but Colleague is still that central hub where everything comes from. And then one of my personal favorites, maybe not everybody can say that, but is Perceptive content or Perceptive experience. That's the system that you use to approve registrar requests. That system is both workflow and document management. So that's what process it directs, let's say, a curriculum change form, that it needs to go, to the advisor first, then to the current college dean and the new college dean, and then back to the registrar for processing, or whatever sequence a particular form needs. That's all managed through Perceptive content. You're using Perceptive experience when you log in and add your stamp as an advisor or dean or department chair, and then route that forward for the registrar to process. And then those documents are all stored ultimately in Perceptive, and that serves as our audit trail, if you will, or our documentation for why this student's program of study changed from communication to English, for example, and who reviewed that and approved it, and when that was done. So it's both the workflow piece and our document retention piece. And we're adding more and more things to that. The ultimate goal will be really fully digital student files instead of a multitude of different ways across campus. The other thing that will be coming along with this change is the main launch page that we all go to access a lot of the tools across campus. So right now, the WebAdvisor interface serves that function for us, so that when you go to datavu.valpo.edu, that's the WebAdvisor interface. We have some things that link out from there, but that's still the central launch point. We're updating that to a more updated user interface. Our programming team has been working on that. This is just a quick snapshot of what that will look like, but it will still have the dataview.valpo.edu URL. So that will still be the central launch page, and then we'll send you to whatever else you need. There will be a preview link very shortly, if it's not already there, on the current DataView page, where you'll be able to go and get a preview of this. It's fully functional, and we'd welcome feedback on that. If there are things that you don't find easy to use, or you can't find things that you're used to finding, please let us know. We'll be rolling this out fully in the next few weeks, so we'd welcome feedback on that. So then getting into the meat of what we're talking about, student planning, kind of big picture. The essential function that we're coming up on, and kind of that will start the change, is students registering for courses. So starting with spring registration for spring 2022 courses, which will happen in fall in a few weeks, students will use student planning to register for their next term courses. But that will also open up the option for them to do long-term planning in the system. So I think you recently got an email about degree maps and doing four-year plans for students. This will really facilitate and provide a central location for that to happen. Students will be able to both register for the upcoming term and plan courses for future terms, all the way through their degree completion, potentially. Another advantage this will give us is a standard tool across programs for doing that. So whereas now, different departments, different colleges may do this a little bit differently. And as students have, double majors or, triple minors or all of the above, as some of our students go for, we'll have one place where all of that can live, a central place for all of the advisors to work together, to be working from, one plan and share notes. And then it will also, from an institutional perspective, allow us to make more accurate projections for course offerings, what students are anticipating taking in upcoming terms, so that we can better decide, do we need to offer 3 sections or 4 of this particular course in the fall? And oh gosh, there are quite a few who might want to take this in the spring, maybe even to help us do an even better job of projecting demand for summer enrollment, potentially. A couple of definitions that I want to just clarify. This may be repetitive for some of you, but just want to go through because they will be important as we talk later. A course, when we refer to planning a course, is anything that's listed in the Valparaiso University catalog. So that's been through the approval process to be offered at Valpo. So XYZ 200, Introduction to the Dark Arts, would be a course. A section is a specific offering within an academic term of a course. So XYZ 200A on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10:30 to 11:20 with Professor Snape and Hogwarts 107 would be a section of that course. And we'll, again, as we talk more, the importance of that definition will be clearer. The advisor that will be presented in here is the student's primary academic advisor. I think since fall 2020, we've been assigning even if a student does have 3 majors and 4 minors, they have one primary academic advisor. So that will be the person whose name will present. We have set the system up because of the way that we do that, so that anyone with an academic advisor role will be able to search for any student. So if you are advising a student for their second major, you'll still be able to find that student, work with their plan, support them in that way. You wouldn't appear as their primary advisor. And the Christ College advisor is the only exception that will show a second advisor, because there's not another great indicator that a student is Christ College, so that will be there. The other thing when we get into the hands-on portion to note is that the email, we will be using a test system, but it has real student data. It's been just copied over from a production system. And if you click on any of the email functionality that would email a student, it will email the student. So maybe consider looking at a student that you know pretty well, that if you accidentally click the button, you can reach out to and just let them know to disregard that particular email. So now we'll dive into the student experience. And from here, for the most part, my slides are just for my reference so that I don't forget anything. But I do want to cover one new thing, and then just a reminder about a couple of continuing things that will look a little different. A new feature that we'll be rolling out is the ability for students to provide their pronoun, and for that to be presented on DataVU, both in the advisor view and in the course roster view, on Blackboard and in Starfish. So you'll have extra tools at your disposal to help remember the student's pronoun when you're working with them and when they're in your course. And then some of the additional functions that students will now do in self-service that they might have previously done in DataVU would be assigning proxy to another user. We've sometimes referred to that as parent guest access. And they'll be, show you, but they'll be able to assign to an existing user that's already in the system, or they can add a new user, which is functionality that we didn't have in DataVU. They would have had to submit a whole request to add a new user. They'll be able to do that themselves. And then the only time it will need intervention is if it looks like it might be a duplicate record of someone else that we already have in Colleague. And then the educational benefit payment agreement form is the other thing that will now be in self-service. Previously, that was every time a student went to register for a class, add a class, drop a class, almost anytime they went in to search for sections, they would have to do an acknowledgement there. Now they will only have to do it once per term. And then it will be saved out there that they can refer back to anytime. So I'll show you that when we go into the student view. So I'll toggle over and, there we go. So this is the main homepage for self-service, and this view will look the same for all users across campus. So faculty, staff, student. One of the differences in self-service versus DataVU is in DataVU, you had to choose which menu you wanted to go to, or which, whether you wanted to look as employee or as faculty or as an advisor. Self-service just presents all of the options to you based on your roles. So if you are both faculty and advisor, it will automatically show those menus. If you are a student too, it will show you that one as well. And the same for students. So if they have a job on campus, they'll see the employee menus, all of that. And that's what all of these boxes here are. The other main navigation tool are the icons along the left-hand side. The home button brings you back to this screen. The little mortarboard graduation cap takes you to all of the academic menus, the little $sign, vendor information. And again, depending on your user role, you may have different icons, but it's just two different ways to navigate the same things. The username up here opens up this, a single click on this opens up some additional menu options that aren't available other places. One of those is the ability to update pronouns. That's in the user profile. And we've updated this test student already, but we'll go ahead and update further. And they use they, them pronouns. So the student will log in, click edit personal identity, and then they'll be presented a drop-down list and they can make their choice from there. At this point, the functionality is a drop-down list rather than, we've had the question sometimes if students can select their own, we're system limited at this point to a drop-down list. Then they'll click save. Anytime most all times you take an action in the system, you get this green check mark that lets you know that you successfully completed whatever the task was that you were trying to do there. And now it's updated the listing here to they, them, there. And when we log in as an advisor and as a faculty member, you'll be able to see this student and where that presents in those views as well. I also have some notifications that pop up. This one's telling me that I have a student accounts balance, and that this particular hold will not prevent registration, but would prevent me from ordering a transcript or a diploma. And I can close that. And anytime I have notifications, this little yellow box in the upper right-hand corner appears to let me know that I have something I need to pay attention to. If it's something that will prevent registration, you'll see it will show in red if it's an urgent notification. And then that can sometimes will prevent further action depending on what it is. The other thing from the user profile, also to mention the pronoun selection, faculty and staff can use that as well, and that will present in the online directory. The view add proxy access is here, and this is for students to authorize parent guest access. It can also be used by faculty and staff if you approve time cards and need to assign a proxy to approve, while you're on vacation or if you're out sick or something. Similar functionality, you'd have different options. So for this student, we'll choose Daddy Deacon for You Are Light. And the student can either select allow complete access and say, yep, my parent can see whatever they'd like, or they can choose allow select access and be granular about what they want to allow that guest user to see. And they can change this at any time. They can add or remove. One note, if you have first semester students and they completed their proxy setup before their classes began, they would not have been able to allow grades. So they would need to go back in and allow grade access now that they're actually in courses. So if, like freshman students, if they did it during focus, they wouldn't have been able to allow grades because they didn't have any to allow. And then the last function from here is the required agreements. We'll go to it quickly from here. And this is the educational benefit payment agreement form. We have accepted these already. I've been using the same test student and forgot to toggle it back to unapproved, but this one says accepted. It would say incomplete if they haven't done it yet. But this is where the student can always go back and look at this. So when they complete it, they get the option to print. They're prompted and asked if they'd like to print it. They really don't, they may, but they don't need to. They'll be able to go back and view it anytime. So I can just click view. If I had not yet accepted it, it would have two buttons. It would have an agree and a cancel. But I can either click on the link to open it, or I could click print and it will print to screen before it actually prints. So that would be another way that the student could view it and go back and review it. And for this upcoming registration period, students will have two. They'll have one for the spring term and one for the summer term. And so they'll need to accept both of those. It's the exact same agreement. But we just need, our process is to have one on file for each term that the student's registering for. And then I'll go into academics briefly for the student. And student planning is the main area where most of this work will happen. So we'll go for the moment into plan and schedule. The advisor view is very similar to the student view. The advisor actually has some more functionality, but the majority of the view is very similar. So we'll look at most of it from that view. And the test system loads a little bit slower than the production system will. We don't allocate quite as much resources to it. While we're waiting for that to load, the search for courses search box up here is just a general web search. So you can put any string in there. You could put just bio, you could put biology, you could put bio 151, bio 151A. And it will search and find those things. So we don't have that in our current search for sections, so that's kind of a nice feature. And then you can filter from there. And we'll go more into that. So now this is where it's telling me I need to acknowledge the required agreement. So that's the link, and it tells me that I would just click on my username above to do that. I'll close those to go out. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just can't see where you're saying it's telling you that. I'm on a phone. You said it's telling you to click on something. I can't quite see where that is.
It was in the upper right-hand corner. And now it popped up and I cleared it, so it's not showing back up. But the upper right-hand corner, there's a blue notifications box, and then there was a red notification box that let me know I needed to do my payment agreement form. And when you'll be able to log into the test system, like even after. So if you want to log in later and play around with it, you'll have the chance to do that, and feel free to reach out with any questions when you have a chance to log in. This is mobile responsive, so it will be much more user-friendly on a smaller device, either a tablet or a phone screen, than what we have currently. But it may not be when I'm presenting it, but when you're actually logged in, it's much more mobile friendly than what we have currently. The main thing I wanted to point out on the student page specifically is on their advising tab. once the student has finished doing their planning and would like for their advisor to review the plan, they would go here and they can type in a note, and you can also see note history. So if you as the advisor have typed a note, or if the student has, they'll all show sequentially in the history. And then the student can click request review, and that notifies the advisor that this student has done some planning and they'd like for you to look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and click that here so that you'll see it when we log into the advising view. And so I get the green checkbox that I've successfully requested a review. And from this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and pivot over to the advisor view, because everything else will be pretty similar for the advisor and the student. And I'm going to jump back to my slide for a minute to give you the URL